goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those times, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the hype, throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, when you throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. 713, could've quit it one day I'm riding. Why they on me? Why they on me? I'm flying, sipping low key. I'm sipping low key and flying, I get those goosebumps every time I'm around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those times, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the hype, throw that.
Good evening, everyone. Here we go. We're back again. Loaded Mag NUFC with another talking tune, and a bit of a special tonight because we've got some special guests coming in, rejoining us again. But look, yeah, welcome all in, people in the chat. Already some questions coming in about an obvious topic, which I'm sure we'll get onto. No doubt. But first of all, boys, Daz, Chris, how are you on this fine Tuesday evening?
Well, I am buzzing. No, not about the news, but I'm buzzing because finish work now for the week. Tried to cram a week's work into 2 days, but got it done. Off tomorrow, looking after the little lad, and then heading towards the airport on Thursday morning and getting a flight to Newcastle. So looking forward to that. And I even got even better news. Dom gave the thumbs up. Well, he didn't blink. He could have been frozen. I said, don't blink if it's okay. So I can take Jordan's seat at the press conference. Yes, the press conference, Liam, on Friday. Liam is nodding as well. It's all agreed. So looking forward to that. And I'm going to give Eddie one of these.
That's a loaded question, isn't it?
Oh, it will be a loaded question, Eddie. So looking forward to that on Friday. Maybe.
Good man.
Chris, how are you?
Good, mate, yeah. I'm in a similar boat to you, although I'm not finishing today, sadly. My last day's Thursday. But yeah, short week this week. Really looking forward to meeting up with you and the boys. And great to have the lads back on tonight. The Jersey Journos, it's been far too long. So really looking forward to having them on tonight, talking all things Newcastle and discussing the game. And, well, but which game? That's what I want to know. Which game are we going to be discussing? But yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Pete, how are you, fella?
Yeah, all good. Yep, just spending time with the family over the Easter holidays, which is great. Planning and already started packing for our trip to Newcastle on Friday. So yeah, all is well. Can't complain at all, and looking forward to it. It's been long overdue, and we've had it planned for quite a while now. So yeah, really looking forward to it. But Let's not beat around the bush. Let's get the boys on. They've been waiting long enough. Let's get the Geordie Journos on, back in business, and on Loaded Mag NUFC. So welcome in Liam Kennedy and Dominic Sker.
Welcome, lads.
Welcome, boys.
All right, boys.
How you doing?
It's one of them, isn't it? That's what I feel a bit like after just seeing that news, which I'm sure we'll obviously come on to. Yeah, I'm excited to be on, but I've just been. It's a bit like sort of popping a bubble as I was coming on. I was like, I can't believe this again, but I'm sure we'll come on to that. Sorry, Dom, I'm jumping in, stealing your thunder, being Mr. Negative as usual.
I know, but yeah, I was hit with the same sort of injury bombshell, if you like, but we've gotten used to it this season, haven't we? So
yeah. Look, boys, we might as well talk about it now, just because like people in the chat are commenting on it. It's breaking news right now, and it ultimately has been simmering today that he wasn't in. I think one of the England squads for the next up and coming game, and that kind of raised alarm bells. And then all of a sudden, we get this about 10 minutes before the show starts, as Lewis Miley's out for an estimated 6 weeks. Apparently now Craig Hope's reporting that it's a back injury on international duty. What is it with back injuries at Newcastle United? Dan Burn, back injury, 8 weeks. Ellie Anderson, similar. Now Lewis Miley, what is going on? But look, Liam, Dom, just want to get your initial reactions to it, your thoughts. I can tell what your reactions are going to be because of the deflated nature of you coming on. But look, just in general, just what were your thoughts when you saw it come up?
Christ, that high press is backbreaking, isn't it? I mean, it's like Eddie Howe's backbreaking high pressing mags. Yeah, I think I'm really disappointed. Actually, I was actually looking forward to the re-emergence of Lewis Miley. I was hoping to see him back in the team at some point. I was waiting, having been taken out, and obviously Longstaff doing a lot of the hard yards. I was hoping to see a refreshed Miley come back into the side. It's disappointing. It's not unexpected. It's something that we've went through all this season. I think it's a funny one because I think to a certain extent, Eddie Howe's been getting a bit of an outball with the injuries. I think everyone has constantly throughout this season talked of bad luck. So much bad luck this, bad luck that. I always think if you put things down to bad luck, there's a risk of it happening again. So I think there needs to be a bit of a inquiry into this within. They need to look at themselves and say, is there anything we've been doing wrong? I mean, I can suggest, in my opinion, I think you probably can't play the way that Eddie Howe's teams do play for a 50-game season. You probably can't do it, especially not with young lads who really need looked after. Miley, one of them. It's one of those where you hope there would be questions asked and lessons learned. But look, there has been some. You can't. I mean, can you legislate for 3 back injuries in a season? There's been a few shoulders. But I don't believe there's been the best management of injuries. I don't believe there's been best management of the squad. And like I say, the thing and this isn't a massive criticism of Howe, because I know a lot of people might think, oh, what's he jumping on him straight away for? But my opinion of this always has been that I think the squad management, even when they had a full squad at the start of the season, wasn't great. Everyone talks about if buts and maybes about if he had these players available, he would have made these changes. When he had the players available at the start of the season, he didn't make the changes. He didn't make changes to the team or during games. He would make one substitution in games. So the squad management, I think, has been lacking this season. But it's one of those you've almost got to write the whole campaign off as a bit of a learning curve, in my opinion. I think Eddie Howe hopefully has learned a lot from this season. He's never operated as a manager. None of his team have ever operated as coaches or physios or anything at this level, and nowhere near this level. Not when they were players and not when they've been coaching. So I think it's been a learning curve for everybody. But the important thing is that lessons have got to be learned. I don't think the squad was strong enough going into the season, which hasn't helped things. I think the transfer window, and you guys have probably talked about it, I imagine, on this show plenty of times. Yeah. You point back to the transfer window, and was it really the transfer window that Newcastle United needed at the time? Did they need to add players who strengthened the bench? That's effectively all they did in the summer, is they strengthened the bench. There wasn't really a strengthening of the first team, which I think was needed considering the style of play that they play. They needed to bring in players who were able to play and improve the team. They didn't do that. They signed certain players who haven't been ready to play Premier League football, full stop. One of them, of course, again, you can write things off as bad luck with Tonali. You can write them off as bad luck, but again, I'm not the type of person who really believes that much in luck. And I think, let's be honest about this, it was the talk of Italian football. I think they were all singing like canaries in the run up to this. It wasn't like it came as a surprise to anybody in Italy when these betting things came up. So it would have only taken a little bit of due diligence in that respect to find out that there was potential problems down the line with Tonali and a whole host of other players as well. It wasn't like this investigation suddenly sprung up within the case of a week or 2 weeks. It had been going on for quite some time. So I think that coming all the way back around, I think there's got to be lessons learned. That's my takeaway from this. I think the next, 10 games left, I think it's going to be tough to salvage anything from this season. I don't think the team is really playing that well. The consistency they're showing at the moment is a team who'll probably finish about where they are. So there's going to need to be an upturn in fortunes. Fingers crossed the Dubai chill out has had the desired effect on the limited number of players who were out there with them, and they come back firing. I think there'll be fire in the belly of a couple of players still in that treatment room who'll want to come back and prove themselves. I'm pretty sure Callum Wilson, knowing the type of character that he is, will still believe and still want to get back and play a few games and score some goals and think he can edge his way into Gareth Southgate's thinking. And I'm pretty sure Nick Pope's probably got something similar in his mind to think, can I get back? Although I think they'll have to be extra careful given that shoulder is now the second time he's injured it. And given obviously the mechanics of a goalkeeper, he needs to be very, very careful in that regard. So yeah, I think it's disappointing, the injury news. And I mean, I'm just keeping everything crossed, lads, that we don't come off this podcast to see Anthony Gordon limping around on the sidelines, or hear news of Bruno Guimaraes doing something, or Fabian Schär, or whoever it may be. So fingers crossed there isn't any more bad news coming.
I forgot that there was other players playing. Yeah. Oh no, I'm glad. I'm glad first of all that Gordon's on the bench, and you know what? This is the one time I would actually say this. Please play Marcus Rashford ahead of Anthony Gordon. I wouldn't say that often, but I'm saying that now. But Dom, obviously, want to get your initial reaction to the Miley injury. I know Liam's had his say, but yeah, we've got Elliot Anderson now fit and available. Is that your go-to replacement, or were you sticking with a Sean Longstaff who's been nursing his own injury as it is? How do you see that going in the games to come?
Yeah, I was probably like Liam, thinking Miley was probably due a spell back in the side. Sean Longstaff's form had really dipped since he returned from that initial injury he suffered. I know he's been nursing an injury all season, but suffered an injury back in November and then hasn't been the same player since then. And yeah, Elliot Anderson still looks like a player getting back up to speed himself, had his own back problems. He came off the bench against Man City, was still looked like he could do with a few more substitute appearances before he definitely gets back in the starting lineup. But at least I'm clutching at straws here. At least this injury has come when you have Joe Willock, Elliot Anderson available, other than 2 months ago, because back then it would have been a disaster. And then you've also got, not saying he should start games, but Joe White, who may get a bit more of an opportunity now with Lewis Miley being out. We don't know how long it's for. Literally, I'm in the green room as I'm hearing this news. So we'll wait and see once we know a bit more. But yeah, Lewis Miley, he's played a lot of football this season, probably more than anyone would have expected. I think it's about 26 games, which for a 17-year-old, and then a back injury as well, it's not ideal. And I mean, I said to Eddie Howe that he was flogging Lewis Miley, which he wasn't too happy about. But it's what has happened this season, and he has had his rest to a degree, with Joe Willock coming back in the side, and it's just a shame now, where he was almost poised to get back in the starting lineup, that now he's been hit with a setback that could keep him out towards the final few games of the season.
I've sort of mentioned it to Dom already about some alternatives to Lewis Miley, and I think he's absolutely right. Lewis Miley was knocking on the door with all the sort of question marks and the reports really coming out about Sean Longstaff before the Man City game. Who are you going for? Is that midfield three when we kind of set up on Saturday against West Ham? Who now Miley's not an option. How do you see that sort of panning out in your opinion, mate?
It's going to be Bruno, Willock, and Longstaff. I can't see it being anything different. Yeah, you would have thought, because we did have, I'm not going to say we had a bit of a go, but we weren't really happy with Longstaff the last while, and yeah, it would have been an opportunity for Wiley to slot it in there. But yeah, I think rest up now, get ready for pre-season. For Wiley, his season is over, and like Dom, I only heard it when I joined the chat as well, joined the show. But Yeah, I have Anderson on the bench then to come in and mix it up a bit, but I expect those three, Pete.
He played well against Man City when he come on, Elliot Anderson. I thought he did well. I'd certainly be knocking on the door for him to be getting a shout. But Chris, I want to get your opinions on it before we go to kind of another talking point, because there's a few. It's Newcastle United, of course there is. Yes, he's on international break, and he's with the international team. But you know, there's been question marks about the medical staff at Newcastle United. Like this doesn't seem like just a coincidence now with the amount of injuries that we're having with our players at the club. Like, is there a point where we need to have a look at the medical team and say, right, something's not going right here because of the level of injuries? Or is it, in your opinion, a little bit what Liam said with the, you know, Eddie Howe's style of play is just running them into the ground? Which one do you think it is?
Do you know what? I think it's probably a combination of both. I can't help it, but I do question the medical team with these injuries, and it probably doesn't help for the fact that Anthony Gordon was lying on the pitch, seemingly struggling with an injury, and then the physio decided to fully stretch his leg, and Anthony Gordon jumped like 3 foot in the air. So that doesn't fill me with confidence. I'm not going to lie, but I think I said this on a couple of shows ago, saying that I think there will be a big like autopsy, if you like, at the end of the season. I think they're going to be looking into everything. They're going to be questioning why there is so many injuries, because let's be honest, you know, the owners are going to all be asking these questions. Will questions be asked of Eddie Howe? Will they be asked of the you know, the backroom staff themselves? I mean, I don't know whether Eddie Howe was recruited all of these, you know, backroom medical team, or whether, you know, some of them were there and some of them have kind of come along for their eyes. I don't know, but I do think that they will start looking into it. And I think we also said, didn't we, Pete, that you know, we did have, for want of a better phrase, we did have one casualty in the medical team who left. I think it was December, January. So clearly there's something not quite right there. And, you know, you could argue that there are a lot of games at the moment, and, you know, the Premier League has moved on a lot, particularly in recent years, you know, in terms of the intensity. We're seeing, you know, teams like Liverpool, like Arsenal, Man City, you know, the games are coming thick and fast, and there is a lot of expectation on these players, and the games aren't getting any less. You know, there's a big amount of games. But certainly I feel like it could have been managed better, and I'm sure the owners will probably have the same feeling. So for me, I think they will look into it at the end of the season. What the outcome is, I don't know, but I do think it is something that will be looked at for sure.
Yeah, it has to be. It has to be. And Geordie Josh in the chat. Hope you all, mate. We'll be seeing him tomorrow night on our show. But he's put Miley's news. Who's cursed his lads? We're discussing that right now because we have no idea. But the one thing
we do know, it's Claire in her calendar. She's obviously found the Miley page.
Yeah, that's true. We did ask the question who could be next in April. We haven't even got to April and we've got another injury. But the one thing I'll say...
Can I jump in there just on one of the
points
you made earlier? Actually, Elliot Anderson, I think, is an interesting talking point. My opinion on the way he's playing at the moment, I think he looks like a lad who's trying too hard. I think he looks like a lad who's really trying to make an impact when he's come off the bench and almost running down blind alleys, running into people, just trying too much and too hard. I think a lot of that comes from the fact that this was his breakthrough season. I think this would have been the year where he would have really established himself in that Newcastle United squad and made a home for himself, which he hasn't been able to do. And football can often be full of these sliding doors moments, and you do wonder, was that a sliding doors moment in Elliot Anderson's career that it allowed Lewis Miley to come in, play those 20-odd games? But now, this is it. I mean, I think it does really feel quite significant, in my opinion, that there are less options now. Elliot Anderson is the only really other reasonably senior midfielder available. He's got to come and make an impact. He's got 10 games, I think, to really establish himself. Or there's probably still going to be the same question marks we had going into the previous 2 summers. Is he right? Is he good enough? And I think he's got the talent. I don't think it's always about the talent, though. I think sometimes you've got to be a bit lucky. And I think Miley got that chance because Anderson got the injuries. Anderson needs to find his fitness and sort of grow into his own frame and just stay fit. And it's a good chance, these 10 games, I think, for Eddie Anderson to almost jump back in and get through that sliding door, and he needs to make a name for himself, because we've seen it in pre-season, we've seen it for the 21s, we've seen it at different levels, but he hasn't really performed for Newcastle at first team level. Being brutally honest, we've seen only flashes in games. We've never really seen enough consistency. I think at the start of this season, I'm trying to remember back, Dom, was it up until the AC Milan game he was playing in the league, wasn't he? And it was almost a bit of a surprise that he was taken out of that game. Can you remember that as well? The first AC Milan game in the San Siro.
Yeah. I'm not sure. He definitely came off the bench in that game. He didn't start it. I just remember in October he was really knocking on the door. He was coming off the bench. He was making an impact. He was starting games, and then I think he came off the bench against Crystal Palace, and then we never seen him until Blackburn.
Yeah, for me at the minute, he just looks like a lad who knows there's a lot on the line. And needs to make an impact, because as we know in football, often these opportunities don't come along 2 and 3 times. So I do feel like he needs to take it this time, and I've got a lot of faith in him. I think he's a really good footballer. It's just he needs to really start showing it at first team level, and it's a great chance in these 10 games. But really, what is there to lose? There's only anything to gain really out of these 10 games. I don't think anybody's got a massive expectation that Newcastle United will go and finish in the top 6 in particular, possibly 7. Some are expecting 8. But like I say, the form has probably been more floating above the relegation zone since December than anything else. So I think Anderson's got a great opportunity to grab the bull by the horns in the next 10 games.
Liam. Sorry, Pete, go on, mate.
I was going to say, he's made an interesting point, because we've got the likes of Tonali coming back in August. You're going to have Joelinton. I think he will. I don't think there's anything that will stop him coming back in August. You got Joelinton coming back. Obviously, the question marks about his contract. Personally, I think he'll sign one, but that remains to be seen. But even then, I still believe that they'll go out and get another midfielder. So it is that opportunity for him to kind of put himself in the shop window and say, "Look, I'm ready to play." And you're right. This was his opportunity, Elliot Anderson. Maybe he sees this opportunity, now with the Lewis Miley situation. But I think you're right. He has been trying too hard, and it's because he is catching up. He's trying to catch up with where he was before, and it's not as simple as that. It does take a little bit of time. I've just seen in the chat, Stu Amos has just said about Dubravka not being in the squad tonight, apparently.
I have some updates on that, Pete.
I just don't. Go for it. Please tell me something.
Yeah, no, I'm just looking at in UFC.com. They say that after starting against Austria on Saturday, the Slovakian FA confirmed that Martin Dubravka will play no part in Tuesday's friendly against Norway. Coach Francesco Calzona confirmed on Monday that the Newcastle goalkeeper had been released back to his club and an uncapped replacement called up. No further explanation was provided by the Slovakians, but the Norwegian match commentator on Tuesday stated that the 35-year-old had left the squad for an unspecified personal reason. So let's see what unfolds there.
Well, hopefully he's available. Well, first of all, hopefully his personal issue isn't too serious. But secondly, hopefully he's available for Saturday. And I can't believe I'm saying that, because you boys know my opinion on Martin Dubravka. But we haven't got no other real genuine option to be that number one, in my opinion. So we do need him. And as Stu just put on there as well, John Stones has just gone off with a groin injury for England. So it looks like players are falling like flies at the moment, and it just calls back to the amount of football that people are playing. So we do need to look after our players, absolutely. But we'll move on.
Pete,
go on.
I was going to say, mate, just before we move on, I just wanted to ask Liam, do you think there's, and we have discussed this before, but do you think there's any element that like Elliot Anderson suffers in the fact that, for me, I'd say anyway, he's more of a natural left winger, and Eddie Howe's kind of, transformed him into this left-sided central midfielder. Do you think that plays a part in terms of, we've heard it in the past when people say, he's great utility player, great squad player, but he can never nail down that position, because obviously when fully fit, we're quite top-heavy on the left wing, with Barnes, Gordon, potentially Isaac, Joelinton, Willock. Is that why he's struggling so much to get in this team, do you think? The fact that he can play a couple of positions and he's not just nailed into that one position?
I think the problem that Anderson suffered with initially was he broke into the sort of consciousness of everybody, and he was a number 10 really, almost played off that. That's his ideal position, is that he plays off the front, a little bit more advanced. But modern football, there isn't the number 10 position is kind of obsolete now. You tend to have, I think, all these fancy arty or like athletic types will call it an 8.5, and it's more. You'll have Kai Havertz is almost like the perfect example of that. That I know he's been playing central striker quite a lot, but can sit in a midfield 3. Joe Linton is potentially a very good example of that as well. Can operate as an attacking 8, really, in the side that they support the front line as well as get back and do that midfield stuff. It seems to be quite a modern thing. Joe Willock very much plays that position for Newcastle as well, and I think it's a case of having to remold the player into that role. Eddie Howe spotted it very early, and he thought he would transform him into that. I know Dom Euler probably been involved in quite a lot of those press conferences where there was talks about where does he really fit into the team. Naturally, he was a 10. I wonder if he lacks a yard maybe to play one of those advanced roles. I think he can. He's got the physical stature. He's a strong boy. I think he can play that 8 and he can get up and down because he's got the engine to do it. But I think he has suffered a little bit. Maybe that's been part of the injuries that he suffered. I know for a fact it was a bit of a growth spurt that he went through when he was really hammering the gym and hammering training to get back into to really establish himself. And that little growth spurt obviously caused problems in his back with the training that he was doing. Went undiagnosed for a little while, and then eventually did get diagnosed. He's been out for quite some time. So I think it's a big opportunity for him. I think I believe in the player. I've seen somebody come in the comments and say optimism. I think there is case for optimism, and that's not just on Anderson. I think Anderson can really make a name for himself at Newcastle United. But I think the football club, if you're going to ask for any optimism, the football club, in many ways, for me, going off on a tangent as I'm quite used to doing, as you guys know, I think I very much see the football club as a steady upward trajectory, no more than steady. I don't believe it's on the trajectory many thought it would be. When the takeover first happened, we all allowed ourselves to get very, very excited. I think it's more obvious today than it ever has been to anybody that this is a long-term project and will not be something that will be fixed overnight. I think Newcastle United accelerated a stage and they jumped to a point where they almost jumped ahead of the stage in their football development. But the football team itself isn't on an upward trajectory, it's on a downward trajectory. I think very much, for me, it mirrors the Jurgen Klopp introduction to football, in English football, where he came in with the gegenpress, the very high press, and the way that he played football, burnt out very quickly and very quickly realised you can't play that style of football for the amount of games that Liverpool play. I think Eddie Howe suffered that a little bit this season. So I do think there's room for optimism, but the optimism has to be tempered with the idea that lessons must be learned, because you can't continue to play and train and operate the way that they have this season in a 50-game season and expect not to get so many injuries. And it's almost been lucky in a way. Imagine if they hadn't had Lewis Miley ready to step in, where would they have stood in that period? Who would have come in? They'd sent other players out. I mean, you would have seriously been scraping the barrel. So no, I think there's reason for optimism. I think there's lots to like about this Newcastle United team, and I've no doubt if it was at full strength for the full season, they probably would have finished 6th or 7th. I've got no fears about that at all. But let's be realistic as well. Who doesn't suffer injuries in a season? So you're never going to have a full strength team. Newcastle have had a ridiculous amount of injuries, but like I say, questions need to be asked, and I hope they are doing that. I think it would be unhealthy as a football club not to be asking questions themselves about the way they've operated this season. I really hope they're not like some fans out there who do just believe in the bad luck idea, because I just genuinely in life, I don't believe that gets you anywhere. If you point the finger at bad luck, you're better off looking in the mirror.
No.
Boys aren't listening to you, Liam, because they're watching this penalty, I think. See both of them. England apparently have a penalty.
No, well, I think, yeah, is it Ivan Toney taking it, I believe?
He doesn't miss unless Nick Pope's in goal, is that not right?
Yeah, well, very, very true.
Sell saved one against Ireland at the weekend against Evan Ferguson. So you never know.
I can hear the whistle's gone. Yeah,
In
score
1-1.
There we go.
Ivan Toney.
Okay.
There he is.
Right. I'm going to chuck the league table up. Newcastle United sit 10th at the moment, boys. We're right in that mid-table fight out, looking up as high as, you could probably say Man United, but more realistically, 7th with West Ham, and looking as far down as you look at Fulham now, 2 points behind us in 12th. Look, at this point in the season, you know, where do you realistically, and now Dom, I'll come to you with this, where do you realistically see Newcastle finishing up at the end of the season? And, you know, if we do miss out on European football, you know, will there be question marks put towards Eddie Howe on the back of this? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if you go on current form, Newcastle probably finish about where they are. But if you ask me in a couple of weeks' time, the next few games are really crucial as they all are. But you're playing West Ham next. If you win that, you're 1 point behind them with 9 games to go. So and a game in hand. So it starts to look a whole lot brighter, and that 7th, 8th place, that Conference League position sort of becomes a lot more realistic. And then you've got Everton at home again just a few days after that. So I think those next 2 games are going to be really, really important for Newcastle. And that could almost dictate where their momentum lies going into the final 2 months of the season. So, yeah, I think if you ask me, honestly, where do I think Newcastle finish? I think they may scrape an 8th and a Conference League spot, but we need to see an improvement from the players and from Eddie Howe and how they manage what it will be a tricky schedule, but compared to some of the other teams in and around them in the table, actually have a slightly kinder fixture schedule. I think we've played Man City twice, played Arsenal twice, Liverpool twice, Man U, Spurs to come after that little run I mentioned, Fulham away as well. So, yeah, if Newcastle can get a bit of momentum going into those final few weeks, then potentially then you start looking in those European places. But at this moment in time, Newcastle haven't won back-to-back games in the league since the start of December. So it's a long time coming, and they're going to have to do something differently, change something, and hopefully not pick up any more injuries if they want to realistically turn things around and get the season back on track. And I think if Eddie Howe's realistically going to be safe, no matter what happens, pending an absolute car crash of an end of the season. But I think missing out on Europe would be seen as very disappointing, because this season, more than any season, you're realistically looking at 8th place, which it never really has had to drop that low if England get a extra Champions League spot and the teams who you expect to win the competitions win them. And 8th place could be Conference League. And if Newcastle couldn't get that after finishing 4th last season, having not had European football to consider since December, then I would say that would be a failure really for Eddie Howe and Newcastle this season.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because Liam, Dom's talked about like potential, you know, where we might finish, you know, with it being a car crash. I'm looking at anything below 10th place as being a real poor season, and the reason why I say that is because, you know, we were kind of told that, you know, once they were out of Europe, they had 1 game a week, they'd be able to train, they'd be able to focus on getting the team right, getting the fitness right. Well, we've had that since January. We're still picking up injuries. We're still seeing really poor performances. And as Dom's quite rightly said, like 8th place could still be a European football season for Newcastle United. And if we don't get that in a I'm kind of playing the role of devil's advocate here. Like, you know, do you then start to ask those questions? And yes, they've said Eddie Howe likely to be in charge next season, but can we say that that's guaranteed when PIF are the ones that run the club? Like, where do you see that conversation around Eddie Howe, and more importantly as well about our finish, and where do you see it?
Number of points on that one you made, Pete. I think starting with the Howe thing that you're talking about and the intro and the involvement of PIF. I think we don't 100% really know what kind of owners that they are. What they've proven themselves to be, from my understanding of how things operate at the football club and have done since the start, is they are more hands-off than I think people perceive them to be. I don't believe that they have people on the ground. They are interested. It's not a lack of interest, but I don't believe they're as hands-on. I think you can see that in the recruitment process. It's been widely publicised how much of a say they had in those operations. Obviously, they wanted Howe, but they wanted Eminalo, and it was Dan Ashworth. So it's not as if they are the overlords of everything. Yes, they own the majority of it, but the footballing decisions aren't necessarily taken by them. I think there is a lot of patience. I think they are what PIF are a sovereign wealth fund which deals in numbers. And essentially, if you look at what's happened in the 2.5 years at Newcastle United, even with a downturn in fortunes, they've seen an asset which they have invested heavily in since buying, probably at least double in value. I think if it was to be sold tomorrow, it would be at least worth double what they paid for it initially. And if you're looking to build asset wealth and diversify your economy, then it's not really been a bad cheap little punt, has it really, to have bought into the most widely watched football product on the planet and done so at such a cheap rate and managed to double your money in the process. So I think there is a lot made, and I think we're still to find out. Who knows? There could be a moment where PIF put their foot on the pedal and say, you know what, no, we're stepping in here and we're going to take full control of this. We're seeing the financial influence isn't the right way. The percentage of the football club, basically the ownership, we're seeing that diluted with regards PCP, if they're still even called that. But Amanda and Mirdad, with the Rubens increasing theirs, who've got obviously a fair bit of money to do so. Be interesting to see how the next few years play out, because I never believed it would always be the Amanda and Mirdad show, and I think we're seeing less and less of them. So it'll be interesting to see how that works moving forward. On Eddie Howe and on his progress going away from whether PIF will come in and pull the plug or make a decision or stand by him, I think they're quite a calm group, and I don't believe that there's anything in the offing where they will jump in. But on Eddie Howe's progress, a number of points for me. I think if you'd offered a 9th or 10th place to Eddie Howe and his coaching staff at the start of the season, they would have said that's not acceptable. So I don't see why we should all see it now as acceptable, because they won't be accepting that. That then takes us on to the players themselves. The players won't be happy with that. Certain players within that squad will sold the dream and they'll be expecting better. I don't believe that Alexander Isak and Bruno Guimaraes will be content. And I think they're the two players who are in the absolute prime of their careers. And for all we might have patience with the project and the bigger picture, footballers don't get very long playing at their peak.
Yeah.
So I don't believe that they're going to be content saying, okay, I'll have another year of plodding along. The fans are happy because we've known rubbish. So you know what I mean? If Newcastle go and then finish 10th this season and then they finish 8th next season, we'll probably be going, you know what, it could have been worse. It could have been worse. It's not been as good as we thought. Yeah. That's not how Bruno Guimaraes is going to be sitting. And then you potentially, in my opinion, lost the most transformative footballer with Kieran Trippier that I've seen in my time at Newcastle United in terms of the bigger picture and the immediate. A real world-level footballer. There's been very few times that Newcastle United have had genuine, and I'm not talking about your Johan could buy this and whatever it may be. And Hatem Ben Arfa, I would loved, even things like this. I'm not talking about this. This is genuine world-class players who Bruno Guimaraes would get in any team in the Premier League. He's the only player in Newcastle's squad who would guarantee start in every single other team. You haven't been able to say that very often. Isak, very close, but if I had to, say he probably wouldn't quite get in Man City's team. I think Haaland would probably play ahead of him. But everybody else, Bruno gets in every team, and there's an argument to say he gets in every team in the world as a starter. We need to cherish players like this, and mediocrity, which is what has been dished out this season, won't keep players like that, and it won't keep them for very long. And it's okay to say, okay, well, we'll sell them, and then we'll have so much to spend with regards to PSR. You can't replace players like that. It's a hard job. It's not an easy thing to replace players like that. Getting players like that on your books is very difficult. And I would be very reluctant to be giving them away just to boost spending power in the summer, giving them away. You know what I mean? The third point I would make on the how and teams progress would be 8 games under Steve Bruce. I think 2 under Graham Jones, may have just been 1. I remember being at Crystal Palace, and there may have been another one as well. So that was a 10-game head start. Eddie Howe managed to get that team to finish 11th. And bearing in mind, it took him a good 6 weeks to turn it around, if not longer. It took him all the way through that winter to really get things kicking on. Yeah. They finished 11th that season. So as a fan base, any fan base of any football club only wants their football club to look upwards. They want to be upwardly mobile. If you finished 11th, minus 10 games, so you only got 28 games and you managed to finish 11th, and you ended up finishing 10th this season or 11th this season, 4 full windows with 400 million, best part of, spent on a squad to finish in exactly the same place. I think it would be daft of any Newcastle United fan not to question that. That doesn't mean you should have your pitchforks out, be saying how this. But why can't anybody as a fan base, us as journalists, everybody else, be silly not to be saying, hang on there. He's had 4 windows and they've moved 1 place up the division. Okay, rolled the dice in the Champions League, had a great time, got to a cup final, was quality. That season was, in a microcosm, that season was incredible, and you can't take that away. The hangover from it has been probably a lot worse than even the likes of, I can't remember who it was in the documentary, was it Darren Eales or Dan Ashworth? I think the hangover has probably been a bit worse than even they expected. I think they built the foundations to cover their own back, to say there could be a drop-off, and we've seen it with other teams, Leicester, others, whoever it may be. But I don't think they probably expected this bad. Sorry, I was just reading that comment there. I think there will be a lot of people who maybe don't really buy into that. Yeah, so I've been going to St James's Park for 30 odd years. I have seen mostly good times, but I've seen bad as well. But I'm never going to continue judging the progress of this team and this ownership and this manager on. I'm never going to keep looking at the lowest common denominator and saying, Eddie Howe, he's better than Graham Souness, isn't he? How far do we go back? Do you always constantly keep looking back at the lowest common denominator and saying it could be worse? Man City aren't doing that. Man City aren't sitting there, if they'd lost the Champions League final, going, could have been back in Main Road, could have been. No, because the footballers that they've got and the fans that they've got and the journey that they're on is so far removed from that. And that's positive. I'm so happy that we're so far removed from the journey we were on under Mike Ashley. I'm delighted. Yeah. But we can't keep harking back saying, well, do you want Mike Ashley back as owner? Could be Mike Ashley again. Or, it could be Steve Bruce. I don't think that's how positive, upwardly mobile football clubs think. I just don't think it is. I think it's okay to remember. You never forget. Always remember what happened and what went before. But we shouldn't be judging the progress that we're on this journey with PIF as the owners and with Eddie Howe, who's shown that he can almost break the mold and perform above what anybody actually, I think most people hand on heart believed he could have with that team. I don't think we should continue to keep judging it on the lowest common denominator, which I think is a very easy argument that people fall back on.
Yeah.
Just want to say one thing. We've got royalty in the chat. We've got Sir Keith. Sir Keith has you should have texted us, Keith. We would have put out the good biscuits for you. But he's having an old dig there at Liam, as you might expect, Liam. Has he lost it?
It's better than England, Keith. You know it is. You know it.
Yeah, you know the score, you know it. But no, welcome in. Hope you're well. The fine biscuits and the posh tea we would have had if you'd have let us know. So yeah, welcome in. But look, it's an interesting one. I'm going to come to you boys just really quickly on this because Liam's already touched on it with the Bruno Gomes and the Alexander Isak situation. Alexander Isak's been talked about quite a lot in the last 3 or 4 days, certainly with regards to Arsenal. We know his links to Arsenal. We know he's a big fan of Arsenal, Thierry Henry. That's why he wears the number 14. Are you boys concerned if we are going to finish out of Europe or, have a real pour into the season, that a player of his ability turns around and says, yeah, I want out. I want to be playing at the top level. Like, are you concerned that could be a possibility, Daz, this summer?
Sorry, I wasn't listening. I was reading the chat.
Chris, I'll go to you.
Yeah, of course it's a concern. I mean, for me, I think that both Bruno and Isak, and they're probably the two that are in question. Certainly, I think this season we'd have a bye purely on the injuries. I think we saw the interview with Bruno after the England-Brazil game, and he spoke about the injuries, and he said that it's been unfortunate and stuff like that. But make no mistake, next season's make or break, isn't it? Because we cannot have another season like this season and expect to keep hold of the likes of Isak and Bruno. We just can't. Liam mentioned before how revolutionary that Bruno's been, and I think Isak. You're right, Liam, when you say Isak's probably not quite at that level yet. But we were having a chat about him the other week, saying, like, if you think across Europe, not just the Premier League, but across Europe, like, you'd struggle to name other strikers who you'd swap for him. And that kind of tells you the quality of player that we've got. If you keep Alexander Isak fit, he's an absolutely superb striker, and he certainly doesn't deserve to be finishing top 10 in the Premier League. He should be up there challenging for trophies, challenging for league titles and stuff like that eventually, playing in Europe. So there's only so long that you can keep a player like him happy. And as much as Isak and Bruno are loving the time at Newcastle, which we're told that they are, that will only last so long, because we're going to have to make sure that our expectations match theirs. And that's why I think this summer's critical, Pete. It's a huge summer, not just for Eddie Howe and the players, but also for the club, to make sure that they make the right decision.
I'm not going to lie. I'm worried. I'm worried about Alexander Isak. He's a highly ambitious player. He's not one that's going to talk in the media. He's not one that's going to push the narrative. He's not that. He's already been questioned in the last few days about, could he potentially move? He's almost kind of hit it with a very balanced response. But for me, he comes across very motivated, very ambitious. And if there was genuine interest in the summer, I think he would say, I might want to explore that. And that's not any disrespect to Newcastle United. I think that's just because he sees an opportunity at 24 years old to play for a team, whether it's Arsenal or another team, that are fighting for the Premier League title, fighting for trophies, fighting at the top end of the table, playing Champions League football next season. As much as I'd hate it, Mark, and look, I've had Potts talking to me about this for the last 3-4 months as an Arsenal fan. Yeah. He absolutely loves Isaac. And the one thing that has started to be seen is what we've already seen for the last year. Other teams are now starting to see how good Alexander Isak is. And I think they're willing to kind of sidestep the injuries and go, you know what? He's a top level player. And the reason why I'm so worried, boys, and I don't know, I'm opening this all out to all of you. Okay. And the reason why I'm so worried is because there aren't any strikers out there at the moment. There are not any top-level strikers that are out there that are easy pickings. And so, therefore, when they're seeing someone like Isak playing for Newcastle United, who are well underperforming, they see that as an opportunity. You look at what Arsenal did to Declan Rice last summer. They enticed him out. They won a European trophy. They still haven't managed to pull him out of the club. At some point, it is an issue. But, Dom, I'll come to you on that. Like, is that something that you could see potentially happening? Is there something that Newcastle United fans should be worried about?
I don't want to say be worried, but unless you're Real Madrid or Man City or something like that, there's always the risk of when you have world-class players that other teams looking for world-class players could sign them, and I think that reality becomes more of a concern if Newcastle don't have the sort of carrot of European football or competing at the top end of the Premier League, competing for trophies, which they haven't done this season. So yeah, I think naturally any good player, there's always a risk of losing them. I think Alexander Isak, for me, maybe controversial, is probably a player I'd be more worried about losing than Bruno, and that's not. I think Bruno is brilliant and is a world class player in his position, but that you could potentially, with some clever signings, recreate a Bruno in the aggregate. Say you reinvested that in 2 or 3 midfielders and almost recreate find a different style of playing and recreate that. I don't think you could find another player like Alexander Isak or find a player or players who could recreate what he could do in the final third. I think he is very unique as a striker, and I think strikers are far harder to come by than players in Bruno's position in that midfield role. And it would be a massive blow to lose either player, but I just think if it were to be Bruno, it's probably easier to manage. It may not hit Newcastle as hard, and they wouldn't maybe have to reinvest as much money. So yeah, I think you're always going to be worried unless you're literally top of the Premier League, winning trophies season after season. But yeah, it's just the reality we're living now. At least Newcastle aren't what they were 10 years ago when they were last in Europe, and they're not a selling club. They can keep hold of these players if they want to, but it's just like Liam says, these are players who are world class, who have signed contracts to commit the best years of their career to this football club. And if the football club don't repay that in terms of getting results and competing at the top, then you almost wouldn't blame the players for looking elsewhere.
Not to mention, Dom. Oh, sorry, Daz. I was going to say, not to mention. You mentioned about it being easier to replace Bruno than it was Isak. Like, don't forget, we got Alexander Isak when other clubs wouldn't necessarily take a chance on him, and he still cost us 63 million. It's still 63 million. So for us to go out and buy a player of equal caliber, or maybe even an upgrade, which sounds probably impossible, you're talking upwards of 80, 90, 100 million. The closest one you could probably say is maybe Victor Osimhen, and Napoli are talking about wanting 120 million. And Pete, we were speaking about it the other week, saying, would we swap Alexander Isak for Victor Osimhen? Probably not. Probably a close one thing, don't get me wrong, but that kind of shows you the caliber of player that we've got. And as much as we love Bruno, and Bruno's a fantastic player, and it's not just the player in Bruno either. It's the character, it's the passion. We would struggle to replace that. Not get me wrong, but it is very, very difficult at the prospect of losing Alexander Isak to think, where would we go from there? Who on earth would we bring in who would be even of the equal quality of Alexander Isak?
You'd have to bring two.
Sorry, I think that the really important point on Isak, which is probably where it all falls down in terms of, is he quite that level? Is his reliability that he hasn't really proven in his time in his 2 years that he's capable of playing a full season. And that's the thing that Bruno, God, honestly, touch wood. I really feel like I'm going to be tempted fate with him actually out on the pitch at the moment for Brazil. But he just always gets himself out there, and he's missed very few games in the 2.5 years that he's been here. So yeah, I think he's robust. I think for me, we're in this, this debate. I think even when Newcastle United aren't playing well, or when Bruno isn't shining, I think as soon as you took him out the team, you would notice him. It would be like a big hole, because a lot of the stuff that he does isn't just on the ball; it's off the ball. It's a lot of the positions that he takes up. It's the men that he tracks. It's the areas he gets into. We've seen so much criticism of positioning this season. Too high here, big gaps in behind. It's probably more the system than it is the player. But he's very clever. I've never seen a player more comfortable under pressure in a black and white shirt. He's very, very, as they call it again in these arty circles, he's very press resistant. But he takes the ball and really, I just see it as he takes the ball in really tough positions and invites people on. I think it's quite a unique skill that is quite replaceable. But I also do kind of agree with Dom's point there that you probably would never replace Bruno. You couldn't go out and sign a like-for-like player, but you could probably sign 2 or 3 that will end up filling in that role and doing a job and slightly changing the role. Sign a proper number 6, someone who will sit in, and sign somebody who'll go up and down next to him, and you might replace him, but there's no guarantees in football. Isak is much harder to replace when he's fit, and that's the big issue with Isak is he's never fit enough. And even when he's fit this season, he's been playing through with injuries, and he even is at present, and it's a concern. It falls on Wilson, really. If they can get a proper support in for Isak and they manage to keep him, they get somebody in. I would even have argued this with Dom and Jordan. We've talked about it a lot, and I would accept a lesser player than Callum Wilson as a support, because I think Isak is the main man, but just a player who was guaranteed to be available when you needed him. Maybe didn't quite score as many goals, but was always there on the bench. And when Isak's ran his race at 70 minutes, you can bring him on and do a job. I mean, we won't quite go as far as Chris Wood, Dom, will we? But
I was about to say you're angling for Chris Wood coming back.
I'm not. I'm really not. Although he's done very well outside of his Newcastle United career, but let's be honest about Chris Wood at Newcastle. He did a job in a difficult team, but was very, very limited. But you would take somebody who maybe didn't quite score as goal. Look, if Callum Wilson starts a 38-game season, was physically capable of playing 38 games, he'd get 20-plus goals. He's a natural finisher and a good goal scorer, but he's never anywhere near that. I think he's probably started about 8 or 9 games this season, and it's meant that Isak's really been on his knees for most of the campaign. And even though he's scored more goals this season, I think we've seen less of the good bits of Alexander Isak, which we did at the sort of the first 6 months of last year.
But that concerns me as well, though. It concerns me as well about Isak, because we're saying, he's played loads more games this season. That's why he's picking up injuries. But then you look at Ollie Watkins. He's played every single game for Aston Villa, and he's played 90 minutes, and he's still been fit. And I'm thinking, it's okay to make excuses about the Wilson Isak switchover, and I get that, to give each other a rest, and it's intense football. But you watch Aston Villa; they play intense football too. Ollie Watkins is high press. He high presses for 90 minutes, but he's been able to play every single game this season, and it does ring a question mark to me. Is that Alexander Isak, if he wants to be a top player, if he wants to play at the elite level, he has to play every week, and he has to play with high intensity because all the top teams do. And so I do think there is a question there, but I'm not letting. I don't think Isak should be leaving for anything less than 100 million. I think he's worth way more than that. But again, it's a topic we'll rumble on. Fingers crossed he's still wearing black and white next season. I do want to come to one thing.
Just one very quick point. Like we're talking about being worried about someone coming in and the heads being turned and so on and so forth. But the likes of Bruno and Isak, they're also part of the squad that got us to where we are today as well. So they also owe us to come back and have an amazing season next year. With a bigger squad and not as many injuries or suspensions and this, that, and that and the other. So, look, there are also, suppose, part of the reason if they had been that bit better, we would be higher up the table as well. So, don't think that they'll wander off anytime soon either. I think they're going to stay. I can see them staying. Well, Isak more so than Bruno. Bruno would be the one that'd be my biggest worry.
But there's only so what we're talking about here. Sorry, I know Dom's probably thinking I've got to get away here. But the thing I would say about it, there's only an elite band of clubs could afford either of those two players, and it really depends on what cycle they're in. Not all of them will be looking for a Bruno. Not all of them will be looking for a striker. I mean, you look at, say, Real Madrid, who are in that group at the moment. look to be spending a lot of their budget on Kylian Mbappe, and it's like, how much more do they?
He's not.
How much do you know? Think
I don't think he's not. Real Madrid are signing their striker. They're signing
exactly. That's what I mean. So yeah,
they're
exactly.
investing.
And you look and see how much more of that is going to be left over. They're going to be able to spend 100 million on a Bruno or whatever. Barcelona would end up offering about 12 players in a player trade to try and get him. It doesn't satisfy anybody.
Could help us. Could help us with squad
players.
PSG have got the biggest hole football's ever seen in a wage budget, having just lost Kylian Mbappe. And I think that's the concern, is that they could be the one that steps in, because there is the astronomical wages that he was on. They didn't need a fee from Kylian Mbappe. It opens up so much wiggle room for them. And then, of course, you look at a Man City. Man City in any given season could afford either player. It's whether they would want them. It was my understanding at the time, if the Haaland deal hadn't gone the way it had gone, that Alexander Isak was in a list of 2 or 3 beyond that who they were targeting. That shows the level of player that he is. But there's only probably 5 or 6 clubs at any one time can afford these players, and they're not all going to want them. So I might be misplaced, but I'm more optimistic than maybe some out there. That I'd actually probably be more surprised if one of them does go. And I think there's a decent-ish chance. I'm not saying a good chance that both will start the season next season.
You heard it here first. I hope you're right, Liam. You
I
feel
could be totally wrong. Clip it up.
No. We'll stick with that, because that's the positivity that we need. We need that positivity. We need to hold on to that. I know Dom's got to go, so we're going to move to the next section. We're not going to spend too long on this section, just a little bit of fun. But obviously, of course, we're playing a charity game on Friday. We've got the boys in, and if you didn't see it, I think Daz has got the pick to say that you boys have signed a contract extension with Loaded Mag All Stars, as we're being called. So you're going to help us and join us and hopefully win with us on Friday afternoon. But I just wanted to bring up the old tactics board, and I've got our team here. We're up against the Macums, Newcastle Farmers TV, the rivals. That's who we're up against on Friday. And Dom, simple question for you. Where do you want to play? Where do you want to play on Friday? Where's your position? Six aside, where we putting you, mate?
Do a bit of running down the left or the right. Wherever the gaffer puts me, I'll be happy to play.
That's Chris. We're gonna have to have a conversation. We're gonna have to make a decision.
We are.
Okay. So for now, I think you might have played on the left for us last time, if I'm right in thinking.
So ran around last time.
Yeah, we'll put you in and around there. Let's say. Let me do this properly.
While Pete's doing that, Dom, are you running off to come on in the second half for Wales? More.
That's where I have to go.
Best thing he ever did, knocking Sunderland back in January.
Yeah.
Definitely 100%. Not sure what's popping up, but it doesn't matter. We've got Dom up here on this side there, so we'll stick you up there, number 8. Hopefully you're looking forward to coming and playing with us again for a great cause. Of course, Alan Shearer Foundation. It's second time round, eh?
Yeah, I mean, it was great. A great day last time. Could have offered a bit more on the pitch, but hopefully we'll make amends this year and come back fighting.
Yeah, we've had a year to warm up, and then we'll be up and ready. And we've got a few additions to help out, to buffer the squad as well. But
invested in youth.
Yes, yeah, definitely. That is for sure. But Dom, absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming and joining us, mate. You go and enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see you on Friday.
I'll see you at the presser, Dom.
Cheers, lads. See you Friday.
Take care, mate. Brilliant stuff. Great to have Dom on. Liam, same question for you, mate. Where? Because I think you might have started at the back for us last time. Is that where you're looking to play again? You want to be at the back?
Yeah, I managed to. I did at some point play kind of left next to Dom, and I want to be as far away from him as possible. He does absolutely no tracking back and no covering. You'll not mind to see it.
So we'll put you on the right then. We'll put you on the right then, yeah.
No, so I'm quite happy anywhere down the middle. You don't want me out wide.
Box to box.
As I'm drifting through me late 30s, I seem to have hit the wall, and any speed that might have been hanging on in me 20s has definitely disappeared in me 30s. So just keep me down the middle. I don't want anybody running down the flanks.
Oh, fair play, fair play. I suppose it's going to be interesting. I mean, we've got Liam in goal for us, so he's helping out the team. Great to have him involved. Boys, we've not sorted out where we're going to play yet. What's the plan? We've got Liam at the back already, one of two, or is it? How are we going to set up? Is it going to be a? Is it going to? Well, I don't know. Is it going to be a 2-2-1? Is it going to be a? I don't know. 3-1-1. What we thinking, boys?
I don't know. I'd say probably 2-2-1. I think unless we've got them legs in the middle that if we played like a 2-3-1 and you've got a box to box in the middle, but it's whether or not we've got the legs. I don't know. I mean,
don't worry about the names. I'm just putting players in. So like we could potentially play like that formation again. Ignore the names. I'm just putting players in. We could switch it to this and play more of a kind of like sort of a compact formation. It's what I used to play 5-6 aside. We used to play really compact, really tight in. And then we used to just spring out on the attack.
All go together.
Yeah, so we had runners here, and here. So effectively in an attacking position, it was a 3. But again, you got to have the legs to be getting up and down. That's something I definitely don't have. So me being in that position isn't going to work. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Daz, any particular position, or you just happy to play anywhere on the pitch?
I just realised I think I'm the elder statesman in the team. I've taken over for Martin in that capacity. Wow. I think I'll be playing 2 10-minute cameos either side. So what I'll be offering, I imagine. If you never know. I don't mind. I just had a laugh the other day when you said we'll go with the low block, and just reminded me of the first 5 minutes of the last season when everyone went forward, and with me at the back, and Richie in goal, and interesting.
Yeah, we could do that. We could get you up playing the Shearer-esque role, leading the line. I'll just put Jordan on there because I think Jordan played down the wings last time. And look, we've got the likes of Matty, got the likes of Adam P. I think Josh wants to play more of a forward role. So we've definitely got players. I'll be in here somewhere. I'll switch for you guys at the back.
Hey, so I'll tell you what, I think we'll get a result with that formation. We'll be all right there.
With everyone on the pitch. Yeah, the 10 versus 6. I'll be happy with that. But no, just a little bit of fun. We'll talk about it with the other boys tomorrow night as well. And yeah, boys, we need a win. We need a win, Leo. Yeah, come on.
We do. We need to. You know what? Really stuck with us last year. It was tight at half time. There was nothing really in it. I thought we played all right, and then we just let the game just drift away from on that second half. So I think we just got to hang in there again, and hopefully the likes of Dom and Jordan, who can strike a good ball from anywhere where we play regularly. Hopefully they bring their shooting boots. I know Jordan's watching from his Lake District hideaway for the week.
Good man. Right, Jordan. Good man. Well deserved, would you say, Leo? Well deserved?
I think, sometimes. No, genuinely, well deserved. Yeah, Newcastle will in the bin this week when Jordan disappears. The football coverage is a right struggle with that. We'll miss you, mate.
No, top man. You know what? We're really looking forward to meeting up with you guys again. The last time when we met up, obviously a great game of football. Went into Shearers afterwards, but like just even at night, just having a chat and a bit of a laugh with you boys. I remember the heated discussions at about midnight at one of the pubs that we went to late on. I think we were talking about Alan St. Maxwell, we were talking about Eddie Howe, we were talking about, I don't know who, like Bruno Gomes, but there were some great discussions. Looking forward to all that again, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Liam, what's the name of the pub that's next to the Aiken side? Because we couldn't remember the name of it that we went into. It was like quite dark, and it had like the old-fashioned wooden benches, but we couldn't remember the name of it.
No, I can't remember. Where we went.
Google Maps will tell you.
Yeah.
I remember being in the Aiken side. Yeah, I can't remember the bits and bobs around that. I remember getting a pizza.
A bit hazy then.
Yeah, I remember getting a pizza at the end of the night. Bridge Tavern, that is it. Yeah, Lisa in the comments. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, we're in the Bridge Tavern. Yeah.
Okay.
Downstairs.
Well, talking of pizza, I don't know. Maybe we don't want to ruin it, but after the footy, we do have a plan for pizza.
Right.
If you're up for it. I did mention it to Jordan, Chris.
Oh, did you
tell
Jordan?
Oh,
go on, tell him.
Just say they knew. Yeah, well, you tell him, because to be fair, it's your plan.
Yeah. So apparently, I saw this online. I don't know if you've ever been. There's a pizza place called Pizzaholics, and it's about 10 minutes from Forest Hall. And apparently, they do like 35-inch pizzas. And I was like, we've got to go there. So after the match, that's the plan. Pizzaholics. Got to order a big, massive pizza.
The famous 32-inch pizza. Yeah, it's on on Cherry Road. Yeah.
Is it good?
I don't know if it is. I had spoke to somebody who'd been, and they were like, "Yeah, it's just one of those run-of-the-mill takeaways, but pretty good with a 32-inch. Be an incredible experience."
Okay,
Liam, I have a few questions for you. We'll go to a few questions. Let's go with this one from Lisa. For which one of the journals is going to score first on Friday?
Me. There you are. They'll be laughing. The two of them, when I'm watching this, they'll be not be Liam.
It's
going to be me. I'm telling you.
I tell you what, if it is, we're all coming to celebrate. We're all coming to celebrate.
Yeah, I mean, those two guys are definitely better finishers than me. And if I had to put me money on it, I would say possibly Dom. Dom tends to play in the forward positions, although Jordan's a good striker of a ball and good centre forward, good technique. But yeah, no, it's going to be me. I'm telling you, I've said it now. It's going to be me.
Quality.
I'll drift. I'll do that little drifting into midfield role, and we'll get a strike off.
Well, Fabian Schär does it.
Yeah, of course.
If you doing all that, won't
That's what they call it.
Love it.
They really don't.
Next question. That's kind of a common question from TOON Gamer. He says, do you think Miley out Bruno will have to be a bit more cautious so he doesn't get banned? It's 32 games, isn't it? Has to get to. He's already been cautious, and this might have taken a bit off his game actually by being cautious.
Yeah, he's just managing himself through it, isn't he? I don't think we've seen too much of a drop off, but I think you saw when he played such a commanding role, it wasn't his best game on the ball for Brazil the other day, but you could just see his tenacity off it, the way he was running with a bit more purpose, and the challenge that he put in on Bowen, like nipping across, and the one where he did the celebrate, which the cameras I don't really think picked up on, where he did the little celebrate when he put the ball out. I think little things like that we're just missing that extra, that little bit of edge from his game, and it'd be good when that does come back. Look, he's a very intelligent footballer, and he's managed to manage it this far. It'd be a surprise if he doesn't manage to manage it all the way through. I think he will, and I'm hoping he doesn't pick up an injury. That's just the biggest fear. With Anthony Gordon as well, I have no idea if he's coming on. I'm not watching this England game at all. None of you guys are, but
I'm not.
I just hope he stays on the bench, gets wrapped in cotton wool, and comes back, much like Bruno.
Definitely.
So, question here, and I think we all believe Eddie Howe is here with next season. But question from TOON Gamer first, and there's a link into one from Tristan Hall as well. Did you see multiple reports linking us to Xavi as a replacement for Howe? If we didn't make Europe, do you guys think he would be a good pick? And Tristan asks, Liam, do you know why Xavi is linked to Newcastle now?
I've got no idea why other managers are being linked to Newcastle United now. I've heard nothing to suggest that Eddie Howe's job is at risk. And Don mentioned it before. I think it would genuinely take a catastrophic end of the season for that to even come into question. I think they understand the factors that have led to them being in this position. Like I say, it would be a disappointment not to get into Europe and not to finish in the top 8, given what's on the line. But I don't think I genuinely sense there's a calmness about the place. I don't think there's any want to change. So I think a lot of that is premature. I think a lot of it's mischief making from different sources. And I'm not just talking about media here. I mean mischief making from agents, from people getting a name out there. And Newcastle United is still a name that plenty of people, whether it be footballers or managers, want to be linked with. I mean, I even saw lots of people talking about that can't have been a coincidence. Mourinho bumped into Yasser Al-Rumayyan at the Formula One. Well, yeah, it probably was. Or even if it wasn't a coincidence, I don't think they were meeting because he's going to become the Newcastle United manager. So I think there's there's going to be a lot of daft talk. There's going to be whether it's managers, players. I think it's all in Eddie Howe's hands, is the way I see it. There is that patience, and I think the job is his to throw away. If Newcastle United do continue on a downward trajectory, we might be having this conversation in a different light this time next year. If it's kind of about where we are now, but I think it's his job to lose. I think he's earned that. I won't be as unequivocal. Well, sort of, I was watching Craig Hope, a good friend in the media, Craig Hope, talk on Sky Sports News about Eddie Howe. I don't necessarily tend to agree. I don't agree with it going that far with regards to Eddie Howe, and there's sort of almost as if there was an unwavering support within the fan base. But I think there is a calmness within the club. I think there's no doubt about that, and I think it'll be here.
Yeah.
Maybe another. I know we're going to finish up shortly on the questions, but
I'm going to say because I'll have to get off as well. Unfortunately, lads, I'm going to have to do a shoot at some point.
No, that's fine.
Maybe go with this one. So, what's the panel's take on the whole situation? Why he hasn't played more? And this, I don't know. He got some minutes the last day. So, do you think we'll see more of him over the next 10 games?
Yeah. I think that the coming on at Manchester City was a big sign of that. Actually, I think he looks like a lad. I'm not sure. I mentioned this in one of the Geordie Journos videos that we did. That I think it looked like he'd filled out a little bit. He just looked slightly different in terms of structure and size. Maybe that was just a different size shirt he was wearing or whatever, but he did look slightly different. I think it's hard to judge on that Man City cameo. I was quite impressed by it. More so than I've been impressed by him at any point this season. And I think it's important that we judge every player largely in the same sphere. You can't really give two. If they're playing professional football at Newcastle United, you've almost got to judge them as they are, professional footballers. And I think Lewis Hall had been a disappointment. I think he has been a disappointment. I think he's looked like a lad who looks a long way off playing Premier League football. And I think mostly that comes from his defensive awareness. There were times, particularly, was it Bournemouth? There was a couple of games where he genuinely looked like a lad who was really struggling with where he was meant to be. His body position when balls were in, crosses were coming in, turning his back, getting turned. The goal at Dortmund was his fault. I think a Paul Dummett or a Matt Targett, for lesser players in other areas, would have dealt with that better and probably wouldn't have conceded that goal. Look, it's tough. He's been chucked in at the deep end. I think it was a hard one to judge last season with Chelsea. I think anybody could have played in that Chelsea team last season. It was such a disaster and showed a bit of heart and a bit of willing and a bit of running. And the fans would have taken to him because they were seeing so little from everybody else. And I think that's a little bit of what happened with Lewis Hall. Doesn't mean there isn't a talented player there. There clearly is. I think we see that he looks like an attacking fullback with good technique, but needs to learn the defensive game. And I think that's what Eddie Howe's been sort of wrestling with this season, is making sure he gets that defensive game right and then waits. And again, it's another big 10 games, isn't it? I was talking about Elliot Anderson earlier. Could be a big 10 games for Lewis Hall. We could see the lad. It's only going to take another injury, and then it might be a case that he comes into the side. And I hope the lad does. I hope the lad does get a chance if he's ready, and I hope he really performs, because he looks like a talented footballer, but when he's played, hasn't looked like a defender, in my opinion. And I think that's been one of the hardest things. He's had to learn to become a defender at the highest level, at the very, very top. And it's not a case of Chelsea where they could have brought, if he'd been there this season, they could have brought in a Maatsen or they kept Cucurella ahead of him and players like this. And he got the chance. He would get the chance to come in and out of the team. And Newcastle, he was signed as a starting left back, and he had to come in and perform, and didn't look ready to perform. It's a shame. His career has probably been stalled a little bit this season. He would have probably been better staying at Chelsea if they hadn't been in such a financial dire straits, that they would have just sent him out on loan to somebody halfway up the Championship. Go and play 35 games, son, and learn your trade, make some mistakes, play the men's game at that level, and come back a much better player. That's almost what he's needed. It might be still what he needs. Who knows?
He was meant to go Palace.
Yeah.
Before we signed him, he was already set to go Palace on loan. So that would have been probably ideal.
Like Conor Gallagher before.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Exactly the same.
Yeah. Liam, we're going to stop at the questions because we know we have to go. But there are some other good questions there. But just a shout out to our sponsors, and we'll tell you what's happening next. Shout out to the radiatorshed.com and all the fabulous radiators that are available through Russ, who we hope to see on Friday and Saturday as well. So looking forward to meeting you face to face, Russ. And also shout out to H2O Bathroom Design Co. and the fabulous bathrooms that are on show there as well. So go check out the website, check out the latest and greatest there. Just a reminder as well that yes, as we've talked about the charity game, the link is in the description. It's pinned this show as well at the top of the chat. So yes, if you would like to donate towards the Alan Shearer Foundation, please do so. We're trying to smash our target. We're nearly there, but we need that last push to get us over the line there. So that's on that one. And just to let you know what's happening tomorrow, because we have another show tomorrow, and we talk to more of the panel tomorrow. So this one is happening tomorrow. We have Talking Toon. Pete, tell us.
We've got the boys in, so the other half of the squad are in the house. Adam P, Matty from the Magpie channel, and Geordie Josh are in the house. And I'm sure we'll be talking tactics as well as Newcastle United and Lewis Miley and getting their opinions on all things Newcastle United in the build up to the big game on Friday and Saturday as well. So yeah, looking forward to that, lads.
Should be a good one. Liam, thanks a million for joining us, and also to Dom, to Kiefer. I wonder, has he scored yet? I don't know. Keep us updated. But yeah, looking forward to catching up on Friday, Liam. Chris, you wanted to play out with the Isaac. We'll play out with the typo. We'll go with that. Good night, everyone. See you tomorrow.